I hope everybody's well. We're going to start the seminar in probably 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start in 2 minutes. One more minute. Okay, why don't we get started? My name is John Bamberger. I'm one of the partners owners of Centaurus. With me today presenting is Kurt Hicks, who's our president and CEO, and Carl Mertz, who is one of our lead security experts. We're here to talk to you about email security solution. We ourselves use this product and we highly recommend it to all of you. It's an add-on. It helps benefit the security currently provided by Microsoft 365, but gives you much better protection for some stuff that we'll talk about. The way you can ask questions, which you all can, is if you look at your toolbar on the top and you click on the chat button, which is a little circle with the lines on it right there on the screen. You can click on that and then you can ask me a question. So if you all click on that, I can type in test and you guys can all read the stuff. So you'll be able to read the questions you get as well as we will. I will ask Kurt and Carl the questions as needed. And so without further ado, we thank you all for being here on our call with us and look forward to continuing our series like we have another one next week we'll talk about. All right, Kurt Hicks.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Kurt Hicks, president of Centarus. Yeah, I want to thank you for investing your valuable time today to learn about the email security solution that we have to offer and how to help your organization be more productive. So the first thing I like to maybe set the stage with, in many situations when we're talking technical, we don't do a good job defining terms. So I'm going to define a couple terms today that we're going to use in the presentation. So phishing, first of all, that's really an email sent to you purposely to almost deceive you, to try and get information for you. So phishing is kind of, they got the hook out there and they're trying to get you to take a bite of it. And really what they're doing is trying to solicit information to you. So that's the concept called phishing. Spear phishing is where they take known information or known trusted people, like John Bamberger sending me an email and it looks like it came directly from him, but it really isn't. So that's where they're using real pointed information to, again, kind of do that phishing exercise. So malware is a term I'm sure many of you heard, but I'm not sure how many people know the definition. It's really a piece of software that's designed to disrupt, damage, or somehow gain unauthorized access to your network or your computer systems. So email filter is, again, it's a technique where you're looking for specific and identifiable senders or keywords or things to exclude that email from being sent to you in the first place. Threat actor is a new term based on all the ransomware in play. And threat actor is really somebody, a person or an entity that's really trying to, crack into your network or breach your security. And an attack vector is a pathway or method used by a hacker to gain access to your network. And the attack vector we're really talking about today is email. And even within email, there's multiple attack vectors. So if you think about security, when we talk about security as a whole, there's multiple ways that somebody can breach or get access to your network unauthorized, and attack vectors are just different ways that they do that. So when we talk about security, there's different aspects of how people are going to try and penetrate your security bubble around your organization. And those are different attack vectors. Again, we're going to talk about one of those today, and there's many, many, many more. So COVID-19 has caused a massive shift from everybody, being in the office to working at home, and that increased the attack surface, the attack vectors, because now they can go attack these individuals at home as well. Phishing email is still the most dramatic, the most prevalent way that hackers gain access or information to gain access to your network. The solution we're talking about today will provide the capability to defend against these malicious attacks before they actually get to your inbox, and that's the important part. We do it before you get there. That way you don't have to make a decision whether it is or isn't valid email. So what experts are saying, simply your inbox is under attack. Phishing is the #1 breach threat. 90% of attacks start with an email, and the Microsoft tools that are out there today still miss 30% of all phishing attacks. Again, 90% of cybersecurity attacks start with a phishing email. The solution we're proposing today analyzed over 55 million Office 365 email messages to validate its functionality. So it's been tried, true, and tested. Again, 30% of attacks, email phishing attacks, are missed by Microsoft Exchange Online. That's the default security that's built in to your email. So Office 365 email. Many people have actually invested in the Microsoft Advanced Threat Protection, which again does offer a different layer on top of the security, but still that particular platform only has 11% miss rate. So it's not catching it all. So many people ask why. What's the problem with phishing and Microsoft? Well, the hackers use Microsoft to test their own hacks. They actually set up their own email accounts and then test phishing and malware attacks against their own email accounts. So if you think about that, they're able to kind of use the tool both as an end user and as a hacker to test their wares, if you will. The other reason is Microsoft's so large, and Microsoft needs to almost lower the bar to reduce the overall false positives and still be able to deliver email for their diverse customer base. So because they have such a diverse customer base, they almost have to make sure that all the email is going to get through without blocking it. So they almost kind of have to leave the door open a little bit. And again, hackers can take advantage of that. So it's real simple to hackers. They steal your password, they get money. That's what it's all about. Hackers use misdirection, hidden code, and targeting for malicious gain. Their sole purpose is to get information from you to be able to extort money. They use simple techniques to confuse the security software. So their job is to basically figure out how to go around everything that's put in front of them from a security perspective. So let's dissect the attacks. There's spear phishing, extortion, credential harvesting, malware, and phishing. So those are kind of four of the attack vectors, if you will, that are attributed to the email overall attack vector. So let's take a look at each of those and kind of dissect them a little bit further. So malware phishing is still a thing. Attachments are an attack vector. If an end user clicks on an attachment, most likely it will install malware. So how do attackers avoid detection? They basically identify. Great job. Wrong way. Okay. They look for how do attackers evade detection? They store files in a trusted site. So if they put an attachment in there, some of the filters will actually look at the attachment and look at where it's coming from or where that attachment is stored. And if that site is a trusted site, it'll bypass many of the filters. Our solution takes this email and, like the bomb squad, it detonates that given attachment in a controlled environment before it would ever make a decision whether to send it to your inbox. So it's going to basically click on it aside from you getting it and then verify that it's a legitimate email first. So another means is credential harvesting. It's really scamming to get the keys to the front door. Emails that request you to validate your login information can be very convincing. So for instance, here, this dialog box pops up and it looks identical to the Microsoft dialog box. So they're able to make that look just like it would look in your own network. The tricky part is if you look at the highlighted URL above, you can see that that's not the name of your internal network. So basically they're able to do this. And if you're not paying attention, again, you may give information that you don't really want to provide to them. Again, our tool would block something like this ever actually getting to your inbox in the first place.
This is stealing your email address and password.
Your login credentials, correct.
Yep.
Extortion email is where they use information harvested or purchased on the dark web. Okay, what they do is they spoof domain senders. They bypass the Microsoft natural security with embedded obscured code that looks kind of like this in the background. You can't see this to your naked eye, but there's code in the background. And it feels like the threat actors have already breached your environment. But either way, they're really asking for dollars, right? So they may send you something to say, we have your password or this, and they're going to extort you for money.
An example of that recently was Birmingham, Michigan implemented a new parking meter solution where you had to pay with your credit card through a web app. That web app was hacked. And whatever the password you used with the email you put in, that the Birmingham was on the dark web for sale. So they would pretend to be someone who knows more about you. If you happen to use the same password on that, then they're trying to say, we got your password, pay me. So that's the extortion part. But it was something benign, like a parking meter app that Birmingham used.
So another attack vector is spear phishing. Okay, it's a little less common, but it's high impactful. The threat actors have to do a little more upfront work and a little more research because they have to know people in the organization. So they have to harvest information about your organization. And it's not just the C-levels, it's anyone who might have valuable corporate information. So again, what they're trying to do is impersonate somebody within your organization, and you assume that email comes from somebody with your own company, but it really isn't. If you actually look at the email address, many times that's the tell right there. So this is a real email that was sent to me, and you can see how artificial intelligence applied various phishing indicators to determine that the email was not safe. So many hackers spin up a new domain name daily. So they're not on the kind of the bad domain names list, because there is a search engine that literally identifies bad domains and flags those, and tools look at those, and if any emails come from those domains, it blocks them. Well, so the hackers actually spin up new domain names daily. So the low traffic is an indicator that the source may be suspect. Whereas like your domain name for your company, for instance, has been around for a long time, so it wouldn't be a low traffic site. So that's a kind of one of those indicators that says this may be spam or may be phishing, because the actual domain name it came from is a domain name that got spun up, 24 hours ago. So if you look at this particular messaging that came for an email that was sent to me, it combines all the other red flags, and that's how this particular email got quarantined. So it looks at 300 different indicators to figure out whether a given email should be passed on to you or not. So let's look at the actual solution itself and some of the aspects and some of the features of it, the capabilities. So Inline Defense uses a post-delivery protection, which means that we are stopping the threat before it lands in your inbox. It's immediately blocking and removing threats by testing them or detonating them. Again, call it the bomb squad, before it actually gets to you. So it does that. So many of the things that other filters may let through, this solution's not going to let those emails get to you in the first place. So it uses artificial intelligence and machine learning to heighten the quality of data it's trained on. So our solution is further downstream, which means it sees the most advanced threats. So it's getting trained on the most obscure email threats. And it uses, as I alluded to before, 300 plus phishing indicators and growing. And each mail is thoroughly investigated for you. So your staff's not wasting time trying to figure out if a given email is valid or not, because if those flags are flipped, it's basically not going to deliver that email anyway. So self-training, the solution actually uses artificial intelligence to learn based on your history of how your employees, partners, and customers typically communicate. So again, it learns over time about your organization and how you send and receive email. So most email filters require that you change the flow of email to redirect it to a hosted service. So this is called an MX record change. So it says, send my email to a different site and let that site filter my email and then send that email to me. Well, this actually tips off the hackers that you're using a different method and you're using a tool to filter your email. In many situations, based on where you're sending that email, they know which filter you're using and they can circumvent that filter because they know what works against that filter and what doesn't. The solution that we're talking about today, it's an API that hooks directly to Outlook. So the hackers don't know that you have this tool applied in your environment. So they don't see it because it's not redirected. It just goes through the normal channels because it's an API that hooks to your Outlook, which means it deals with it internally and the outside world can't tell that you're doing this. So the proof of the value can be seen in the latest research. Over 360 million emails were analyzed to determine the overall effectiveness of this tool. As you can see, the proposed email security solution that we're talking about is 5 times more effective than Proofpoint, 10 times more effective than Mimecast, 17 times more effective than Microsoft Advanced Threat Protection, which again, many of the people on this call probably use, and over 20 times more effective than the base Exchange Online protection that comes with Office 365. So here's a case study where a large chemical distributor with 11,000 mailboxes, again, most of our clients don't have 11,000 mailboxes, but you can see the overall impact. It reduced they turned on this tool, and within days, not months, days, it reduced the phishing attacks by 99.2%. It reduced the end user requests regarding quarantine email by 71%. This is a significant overall productivity increase because the end users do not have to deal with the phishing email because they never received it in the first place. So think about that one for a second. If they're not getting it, they're not wasting time trying to figure out whether it is or isn't spam or isn't a phishing email. So that's the power of this tool. So this tool sends you a weekly report. And we actually have a copy of one of ours right here.
This is a report for us because we use the product as I mentioned earlier. This report is what we get. This is not a release report, which we'll talk about, but this is a report of what happened for our whole environment last week.
So we have 171 mailboxes. They're all in protection mode. We monitored just last week close to 35,000 email messages for our organization. We found 262 phishing emails. All were remediated, which means all of those were addressed before they actually went to an end user. We found 2269 in spam. We had 11 malware events, again, all remediated. And we also have the data loss prevention capability on. So here's one I like to show it. So obviously see me, I'm the top of the list because just of my title, right? So I get way more email probably than most people. But Microsoft detected a good portion of the email, but there was a good percentage of attacks that would have gotten through had we not had this tool in place. And you can look at like Kathleen, for instance, working in our accounting department. I mean, there's a huge amount of email or phishing attempts that would have got through had we had not had this tool in place. So this is kind of the differentiator. So we can show you like kind of the before and after of this solution and then with the Microsoft, because it shows both of those side by side for you.
The red was what our product caught, and the blue is what Microsoft caught.
Microsoft, right. So this is one of the things you can do when you actually get an email. You can still make a decision whether you do or do not want to have that email sent to you if it's quarantined. If you do request that to be sent to you, it's then further analyzed. And what happens here, it doesn't just automatically go to you. It goes to another rigorous process to make sure that is truly a valid email message. So in this case, we had 4 requests last week. 3 of those were approved and 1 of them was denied. I think I know who got it denied.
I did. I let a customer try to contact me, said it was legit, and it wasn't.
So that's one of those spear phishing where it was actually literally a client of ours. They used their email address or a spoof of their email address that sent it to John. And then John thought it was legit, and our tool actually caught that and protected him again. So he didn't have to worry about that getting through him and being, installing malware. So that's kind of the reporting capability, and you get that report every week. So what else does this tool protect? Well, out of the box, our solution protects Office 365 email. It does also protect your OneDrive data, your SharePoint data, and your Microsoft Teams data. Now, their add-on, you can actually add on, it's an additional fee, but you can add on Box, Citrus ShareFile, and as well as Dropbox to protect you. So we offer 2 different solutions today, and they kind of build on each other. The first is called CCare Email Security, and it's the advanced anti-phishing and the advanced malware protection. So that's got the anti-phishing and all those 300 indicators that are looked at. It also has mailbox sandboxing, and that's kind of where it detonates the bomb. It puts in a malware sandbox and clicks on that and sees if there's a malware attached to the email and kind of blows it up and makes a determination whether it should or shouldn't send that email to you. Now, if you're in certain industries, you have to adhere to certain levels of compliancy. So we have an add-on to this tool that does data loss prevention. So what that will do is it'll screen any email for a social security number or credit card information, or you can actually set up different profiles of certain information that should not be sent out of the organization, and it'll stop those emails from being sent. And it will also automatically encrypt any Office 365 email for you. So some of our clients
have to have that. Yeah,
have to have compliance.
we have some of you do.
So what's the next step? So you can sign up for an assessment. This is a 14-day window. Okay, so it's a 14-day assessment. It uses real world information about your overall email. So we'll turn it on what's called monitor only mode, and that will at least give us an idea of what it would catch if we turn it on. Then what we'll do is let you pick 5 employees, and we'll put them in what's called prevent mode. And these 5 employees will literally be turned on as if the product was fully implemented on your behalf. And then after this 14 days, we'll actually take a half step back with you and review the results. And after that, we can implement for the entire company. So I think the proof is in the pudding. The best way to see how this product works for you is sign up for a 14-day assessment, and then we could turn it on and you can see this working in your environment with your actual data. Okay, so our next seminar is next week. We're having, again, a security education series. Next week, we're going to talk about managed detection and response, which is really a 7x24 cybersecurity offering that detects, analyzes, investigates, contains, and actively responds to security incidents. So if in fact you were to get malware, this tool would then identify that. And if it got, like I said, maybe a given desktop got it, it could actually lock that desktop down so it doesn't infect the rest of your environment. So we're going to talk about that next week, Thursday at 1:30.
And we'll send out more stuff this week. We do have some questions, Kurt and Carl. Why don't we start with the top?
Okay.
And it was, what is the risk to me if they steal my email credentials, like the example I gave?
Sure, I can answer that. The biggest risk is potentially ransomware. So if I get somebody's email credentials and I'm a hacker, usually your email credentials are going to also match your domain credentials. It's really easy for a hacker to scan what's called ports. I don't want to get super technical, but basically they scan the outside of your network and try to find a way in. And the normal way in for your employees is a VPN, right? Guess what they can do with those credentials? Log in with a VPN. Guess what they can do once they're in? Anything they want.
Okay, the next question is, how do we release that email if it's blocked falsely?
So basically, again, when you request that, so there's in the body of a quarantine email, you can hit a link to request that email to be sent to you. And then what happens is that is then scrutinized again at our SOC. So we're actually going to reanalyze that email message and validate whether it, again, with those credentials, with those phishing attributes, we're going to test that email again to make sure it's legit. And if it is legit, then we can actually pass it on. You want to add anything to that, Carol?
Yeah, the common question on that is, do we get an email when it's blocked, or is it at the end of the day, or does it go into a spam or junk folder? I know the answer, but go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, it depends on the criteria. Kurt had a slide in there where it actually showed a sample from him, but in that slide, there's a click here button, and that triggers a response from our SOC, and that's literally released and reviewed within a half hour. So what happens is if it's a legit email, they'll go through, analyze that, and then they'll release it and it will hit your inbox. If it's not, they will deny it and they'll tell you why they denied it.
But you don't get the email at the end of the day. You get it right after they blocked it, correct?
Correct.
So you'll see, and I get emails 2-3 times a day. You'll see that. Okay, yep. So we got one more question. It's kind of in the same vent, you guys. Did these studies include data on false positive? It's great to block malicious email, but it's very frustrating when non-threatening messages are blocked. I know we kind of just answered that, but.
Yeah, we could go a step further. So in the setup, what we would do is actually go through your whitelist in Microsoft 365, and we could whitelist it in this product as well, in this service. The advantage to whitelisting it in this service on top of Microsoft is we can see what IP address it's coming from, so we can lock it down further to make sure, even if we do whitelist that domain, it's actually coming from that domain. So if that domain were breached for whatever reason or hacked, and it was coming from a different portion of the world or something like that, the tool would continue to block it.
Okay, I got another one. I haven't heard this one yet, but I've been getting several voice messages on my email. Are they legitimate?
Yeah, one of the things we talked about is the attachments, and that's where kind of the bomb squad comes in. So an email that comes in with an attachment, you assume that's actually a voicemail message. That's really phishing, or actually going to try and install malware in many situations. What's going to happen is the tool's going to take that in the malware sandbox, and it's going to detonate or click on that and fire that attachment off and determine whether it's valid or not. And obviously, if it's not going to go through.
Okay, that's our questions for the day. We appreciate everybody spending time with us. We think this is important. We've implemented it ourselves. It's helped us tremendously. I highly recommend it to you guys. We are going to introduce, as we probably all your account managers, everybody told you, there are layers to security. And next week, same time, is just another layer. And they're important, and they protect your organization. And we don't want to hear about it, but it's the reality we live in today. So thank you all for spending the time with us. We appreciate it. We hope we answered your questions. If you have additional questions, you can reach out to me. I know most of you, but you can also reach out to your account manager or whoever you feel comfortable within the organization. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.